I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Mike Pence.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, everybody, welcome to the show. Wednesday, hump day, middle of the week. We got a show. It's a little bit heavier than we normally go. We got some, we got some stories. We got Fox News, War on the Poor. Talk about that. Got, of course, Donald Trump's social media site. We found a sucker. Okay, we got a sucker that invested in Donald Trump's new social media site, and it's hilarious. You're, of course, you're never going to guess who it is, except you probably will. You're not going to be surprised, and you're not going to be surprised how much money they've already lost. Fun. We've got that, and then, of course, we have Rittenhouse. I've got some thoughts about that. Disaster. We got rich people ripping off rich people, which is always fun. So that's a fun segment. We'll talk about that, what's going on there. And then, of course, we have a very interesting story from Mother Jones about how a Democratic data firm, ostensibly Democratic data firm, worked to help Republicans get elected, as well as those Republicans, of course, included those who were against the certification of the election and even Capitol rioters. Oh, fun. Fun. I have the details on that. That's a big, big story. Should be a really big story. And it was, of course, sent in by one of our viewers. It's always interesting when you guys send me very, very interesting stories about that. So I love it. I'm going to talk about that today, and it's also going to piss you off. So fun times. Ooh, Sparkle Dragon 93. Interesting. I'm not going to give it away, but let's not give it away. We'll get to the story. It's actually the first one. So who was that viewer? It was you, Dango Bango. You should know that. Yeah, I know. Thank you for sending in that story. I'm going to talk about that. Dem firm, I suspect a wishy-washy corporate Democrat-aligned law firm. Look, I'm not going to give away too many details, but you're kind of close. Kind of close, but again, we've got more details on that. Turns out they serve, yes, a lot of Democrats. A lot of Democrats. So we'll get into it. We'll get into it. Cake or pie? Cheesecake, Brandon. Cheesecake. Is that a cake or a pie? I don't know. See what happens. Yes, look, I do read a lot of comments. Don't worry about that. I appreciate the comments. I read the comments, and I do appreciate them. I just like can't like read every one of them or respond to them out loud, I should say, especially in the middle of the story. But I do appreciate all the comments. I do like to read them, and I love your feedback as always. And so thank you. Thank you, Bite and Gale, by the way, for coming over here from Indisputable. I really, really appreciate it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. All right. If you could like and share the stream before we get into the stories as well. I do, I do appreciate when you share it. I'm used to my comments being constantly getting overlooked on other live streams. It's possibly because those live streams, I mean, again, if you're on there with like several thousand people, it is difficult to read those comments. Even if you're, even if you really want to. I mean, I can only imagine what Hassan has to deal with. Like, you can't even read that man's chat. And even on TYT, of course they want to read comments, and there's just so many of them. But here it's a little bit smaller of a community, and there are some definite advantages to that. The live stream community, being small enough to where we can actually do, actually read comments, more comments from viewers. And so, advantages, disadvantages. And so I actually do like having a bit of a smaller community because we can actually, it feels a little bit closer. You know what I'm saying? That said, I do want it to grow. I love having a large community as well. All right. Anyway, enough about that. Messing around here. Let's get into the stories. Now, y'all know that former President Donald Trump has, or is planning to launch a new social media site. I talked about that. It's what is it? Truth Social. It's going to be filled with truths. You can even retruth things, and so it's even more truthier than truth. It is filled with the truthiness that even Colbert could dream about back in the day. So this site, however, seems to be having some. Well, let's just say people are having doubts about it, okay? I'm hearing some people are talking about the doubts that maybe it's a gigantic waste of money. Maybe it's not going to do very well. Well, that's at least according to one, senior contributor to that well-known fake news liberal rag Forbes, who recently wrote, and this is Chuck Jones. He wrote that Trump's new platform is facing a little bit of an uphill battle, meaning that it might not do very well. Now, of course, as been reported before, Trump's Truth Social platform is part of Trump Media and Technology Group, or TMTG. That just always makes me think of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for some odd reason. Just, now I think of Donald Trump wearing a gigantic turtle shell. And so all those terrible thoughts. You will probably brain bleach after this one. Lots and lots of fun. So we're having fun on this one already. So that Trump Media Technology Group is set to merge with Digital World Acquisition Corporation. So that's basically an SPAC. It's a shell company. It's a shell company that they use specifically to set up mergers. It doesn't have it doesn't have any revenue, doesn't have any assets. It's just a shell company set up for specific types of mergers and acquisitions. Now, when I talked about this story originally, I pointed out that Digital World Acquisition Corporation is actually set up and incorporated in Wuhan, China. Oops. It's just a little bit of fun irony that has nothing to do with the story. Just fun. Okay. Now, as Jones points out, he said, despite a jump this week in the stock price of Digital World, these companies have no revenue or earnings. Again, it's because it's an SPAC. In fact, he said, we have neither engaged in any operations nor generated any revenues to date, according to Digital World's IPO prospectus. And so, again, despite that, all this stuff, it has no money. It's got no money. It's not worth anything. And yet they're selling stocks. So now, also the same thing, Jones writes, could be applied of TMTG. It is a business starting from ground zero with multiple hurdles in front of it. From its press release, TMTG's business will be to create a rival to the liberal media consortium and fight back against the big tech companies of Silicon Valley, which have used their unilateral power to silence opposing voices in America. Now, of course, if you have read any of the disclosures about Facebook, you would know that's complete and utter lies. That's just garbage bullshit, all right? Facebook has actually done, and I'm a Facebook partner, and a lot of my, viewers are on Facebook. They have undoubtedly, provably favored the right wing. They haven't silenced anyone, okay? They constantly promote Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire, Dan Bongino. You'll always look in the top 10 most viewed, Facebook pages, or I should say most viewed Facebook posts. It always comes from the right wing. Now, of course, they figured out how to game that algorithm, which drives mainly, or I should say, which is driven mainly on anger, fear, disgust. Well, that's what the right wing peddles in the most. And so that's where they get the most engagement. And they knew that their algorithm, people at Facebook knew that algorithm was set up in such a way to promote right-wing content. And they decided not to change it because it was good for their business model. They were getting engagement, they were getting ad revenue, they were getting personal information, likes and clicks, etc. And they're like, well, hell yeah, of course we're gonna keep doing this. Yeah, of course. So the whole idea that social media, is silencing conservatives and stopping them, which is why we need to set up our own social media company, is ridiculous. Just garbage. Absolute garbage. So now, he continued by saying, this is Jones, along with a social network named True Social, it would be a large hill to climb going against established social media companies. So he's basically just saying, well, you already have Facebook, you already have Twitter, you already have YouTube, you already have Instagram, you already have all these social media companies. Not only that, you also have many on the right wing, where you have Telegram, you have Gab, you have Gitter, you have Frank Speech now. These so-called right-wing free speech platforms, which is hilarious because, as I always point out, they're pretty hypocritical. I think on Frank Speech you can't swear. Like, you get banned for swearing on Frank Speech. I mean, it's ridiculousness. And even on Trump's True Social, you can get kicked off for making fun of the site or annoying people who work for the site. And so, yeah, sure, great. Total free speech bastions. All right. But again, with all of those companies out there, this guy, Jones, is like, why? What's the point? It's not going to do very well. So, and look, let me make a prediction here that is not entirely too bold. Donald Trump is going to use his company to funnel money into his pocket, of course, until the site crashes and burns. And TMTG goes belly up or gets turned into turtle soup. A little bit of a, Turtles reference there. It's going to get shredded. And that's fine, because that's what Donald Trump does. That's his business model. He'll take as much money from this company as possible, even if it operates or, when it operates in the red. Doesn't matter. He's going to take that money, stuff it into his pocket until the whole thing burns. And that's it. That's it. And then, of course, he's going to go right back into bitching about how Twitter is bad and how they should reinstate his account. You know it. You know it. So now Jones is trying to be as fair as possible. Like, I would say too charitable to this position. I don't know Jones. I don't know his politics. Jones doesn't really matter in this case. But I think he is being incredibly, way more fair than I am, obviously, because he notes that Trump has a very poor track record of running a company. All right, well, again, that is accurate. But he's still taking this seriously, like, Trump wants to set up this company because he really does want to challenge the liberals. No, he doesn't. No, it's about money. It's about money. That's all it is. And again, the Washington Post had noted that, once again, how Trump has a very, very bad track record for companies. They talk about Trump's own company, which is Trump Entertainment Resorts. That company operated for roughly 2 decades, starting in 95. For Trump's investors, it was a disaster. The company lost more than $1 billion, its stock price nosedived, and it filed for bankruptcy 3 times in 2004, 2009, and 2014. However, Trump himself did very well. The struggling company paid him more than $44 million in salary, bonuses, and other compensation. So I tell you that because I think it's really relevant to this. Not for the fact that it's a failing business. No, Trump fails businesses all the time. The thing is that Trump takes all that money for himself and lets the business crash and burn, and then goes and says, well, I'm bankrupt. I load my company up with debt. I buy all this junk, these, junk bonds or junk loans that I have no ability to pay back because the interest rates are sky high, but that's okay. The business fails. I grab myself a golden parachute, and that's it. I make out like a bandit. And all the investors get screwed. Ha ha, suckers. You invested, and now you're screwed. And that's it. And so, look, all fairness to Jones, when trying to be super objective, but at the same time, I think you're being a little bit too fair to him because you're not connecting the dots. That this isn't about making a real competitor to social media. It's always been about taking a company, loading it up with debt, and then extracting as much value from it until it blows up. And it's going to blow up. So if you're an investor to this company, you're a moron. Simple as that. You're stupid. You don't know Donald Trump. You don't know his track record. And I think I think Jones is, again, he does put that into his article that his businesses have not done very well, but I think he should have gone a little bit farther in saying, look, if you're investing in this business, Trump's track record, this is not going to go well. This is going to go very, very badly. And now, that said, I mentioned you've got to be an idiot to invest in anything that Donald Trump is like the head of, okay? If it's a Donald Trump project, stay away. Stay far, far away. You've got to be a dumb person. And we found a dumb person. Turns out it's Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene actually invested $50,000 into the stocks for this company. DWAC, as Jones notes, did see its shares skyrocket over 800% after announcing the deal with Donald Trump. So now you might think, wait a minute, 800%? Isn't that good? Oh, well, that's fantastic, right? Well, no, hold on. It depends on the share price. If your share price is like a penny and it goes up 800%, well, you're still not doing very well monetarily. All right. Now, look, if you buy super low and it goes up, well, that's fantastic, right? Okay, well, that's not what happened with Marjorie Taylor Greene. According to CNBC, DWAC did open at $118.80 a share. Wow, okay. However, Marjorie Taylor Greene bought high. And then it fell to $67.96 a share. It is now trading around $63 a share. That means Green, at best estimate, has lost at least 7% on her investment, totaling thousands of dollars. Oops. Sad. Sucker. Baby. I thought it was supposed to be buy low, sell high, not buy high and sell low. Well done. Nailed it. Okay. Anyway, let's move on. A Fox News guest thinks that poor people ought to be more grateful because it turns out poor people are more wealthy than they realize. Take a look.
You talk about the European culture as a culture of victimhood, and they say that meritocracy doesn't exist. Why are the two axioms important to tell the American story?
Well, because we excel at almost in every quantifiable way possible. We excel economically over Europeans. In Europe, it's a much more docile and pliable population, and they embrace safety over risk most often, and we don't do that here. But we're creating a system that incentivizes people to do that, and that would be a big mistake.
I love this survey that you included in one of your columns, the World Value Survey. 70% of Americans still believe that the poor can escape poverty if they work hard enough. Only 35% of Europeans think that. That's the American spirit.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, people don't realize how wealthy they are. I'll give you a quick example. If Britain was a state, if we invaded Britain and made them a state, they'd be the second poorest state per capita in the United States after Mississippi. We are far more successful than European nations, and I think the writers at the New York Times and elsewhere, they don't realize that, or they try to trick people into believing it's not true.
We're also the kindest, most charitable state. We like to rip on ourselves all the time, but we give more money than many countries' GDP.
Absolutely. An average American gives 7 times as much as the average European. Now, the European will say, hey, you know, we pay a lot in taxes, so that's why we don't give charity. Well, yeah, that's the problem.
Oh, man. So let me just end that last part. So you talked about charity for a second, right? Well, I mean, you know, the problem is that people don't give to charity because they've been taxed. Well, if you have strong social safety nets, you need less charity. So you give less charity because it's not needed. Because actually the government does the things. I know. All right, but okay, there's a lot to go through, a lot more. But let me just also address first, okay, we are the kindest, most charitable state. I mean, look at all the money that we give, which is actually less than 1% of our annual budget we give to other countries. But the kindest, most charitable state. You don't understand. We are very kind. And we give all this money, less than 1% of our budget. Now that's the thing, though. Fox News has contributed to this idea that we are giving like a gigantic part of our budget in foreign aid to other countries. Now, again, we do give, in dollar amounts, billions of dollars to other countries. Most of it goes to Israel, which is an already very wealthy country, in order to, you know, help them bomb brown people, the Palestinians. Okay. And so, wait, how does that make us more charitable? How does that make us better? That doesn't make any sense at all. And speaking of that in a different light, how can you say that we're a very kind, charitable state that allows its own citizens to die if they can't afford insulin? You get cancer, hey man, better have a GoFundMe. You want to go to university? You know, if you want to get into medicine, for example, be a doctor or a lawyer, whatever, better get hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans and then pay on them for the next 35 years. This is a problem that a lot of countries in Europe don't have, where they don't have tuition that's incredibly expensive, or they have tuition programs where you can go to school for free. Some countries even offer you a stipend to go to school. They pay you to go to school. Whereas in the opposite, of course, in America, we pay to go to school a very, very large amount of money. But we're so charitable. Super, super charitable. You understand how charitable we are. And look, again, as far as, we don't realize how wealthy we actually are. We're not wealthy. We're not. And the government, I'm sorry, is not very charitable when it comes to welfare. For example, during the pandemic, not only did many other countries have universal health care, they also gave their citizens a monthly check in order to stay home. I mean, for in America, we ended up getting about 3 means-tested stimulus checks. 2 of them means-tested, one of them even more heavily means-tested, under a Democratic administration, by the way, and unemployment benefits that weren't available to certain kinds of workers. While, of course, we gave the rich and corporations billions of dollars with the promise that, oh, no, we'll give you all this money if you promise, if you do the honor system, not to fire people. What happened? Well, they took the money and they fired people and they bought back their own stocks. And some people, of course, used this money that was supposed to be for employees on personal things like cars and a Pokemon card. So give me a break. Like, seriously, this is what Fox News is talking about. And by the way, this is not factual information that they are giving out on Fox News. Big surprise, right? Now, I've got more stats here. Now, according to quality of life rankings, the United States is actually a solid 20. Now, okay, that's not horrible, but I'm going to give you more information on where we're massively lacking and where we could do a lot better. So now, on these are out of 100, right? These are some of the scores from the Quality of Life Index. So now, out of 100, we get a 7.9 on affordability. We get a 10.3 on income equality, a 10.8 on safety, with all the idiots running around with like unlimited weaponry, and 31.9 on a well-developed public health system. Now, of course, that's likely because of the existence of Medicare and Medicaid, but also not very, very well developed. Now, and that's the thing, though. On public systems, we actually do pretty well. Medicare, Social Security, these are amazing programs that have helped millions of people. And they continue, to be assaulted, even though they're still fairly robust and should be expanded. But here's the thing. If you're wealthy, America is one of the best countries on earth. It's true. But only if you're wealthy. Now, if you're a regular person, if you're a member of the working class, well, you're not doing so well, and it's not the best place on earth. So even if you work your ass off the entire time, you're still very likely to never be able to escape poverty if you were born in poverty. And you'll actually only end up serving to enrich someone else your entire life. And unlike the conservative narrative of, oh, if you work hard, you'll get out of poverty, right? And he referenced, Kilmeade referenced that poll of, oh, well, 70% of Americans believe that if you just work hard, you'll eventually get out of poverty. Well, that's not true. That's not true. Again, you're mostly going to end up, if you're born poor, you're going to stay poor, and you're going to enrich a giant corporation. And so that narrative that, oh, no, see, working people are just working to help poor people be lazy and mooch off the system, that's their narrative. So we should get rid of those safety nets. Not true at all. No, you're much more likely to work for someone who doesn't value labor, the labor that you put in, doesn't pay you fairly, doesn't give you the benefits that you deserve, like healthcare and paid time off and things, vacation time, things like that, and doesn't even treat you half the time as a human being. Well, that's who you're working to enrich. That's who you're working to enrich. And by the way, these corporations, understand that they have the executives have a fiduciary responsibility to extract as much profit from you that they can. And so these CEOs, these bosses, well, that's their job. And the entire purpose of a corporation is to make profit. That's it. Make profit for their shareholders. And so, you know, you have that entire system built in America of basically, you know, capitalism. That's what it is. But without strong social safety nets. And so you have these politicians, you have these companies, you have these CEOs, there's rich people who often will kick out the ladder of success behind them. And so it is downright near impossible to become wealthy now unless you're extremely lucky or unless you were already born there. In fact, according to a research paper by the National Bureau of Economic Research, U.S. social mobility actually had fallen by more than 70% in the past half century. There is no social mobility here in the United States anymore. And of course, there are a lot of reasons for that. For one, wages. Wages have barely risen. The federal minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour. Most working class people make what, anywhere from $8 to $11 or $8 to $13 an hour, and that's not very much. That's below middle class. In fact, middle class is considered to be between $45,000 to $140,000 a year. That's considered middle class. $15 an hour, it gets you $30,000 a year. So even if you're making what is being so-called a living wage, which in my opinion is not enough, $15 an hour, it should be more like 22, 23, at least. Well, if you're making that, you're actually way closer to poverty, even though you're considered to be middle class. And again, you have, the cost for food, housing, education, healthcare, energy that have soared. The inflation on these things cost a lot more, but you're still getting a lot less than what you did before. So no, poor people in America are not wealthy. They're not wealthier than they think. No, you still have half the population, this was even before the pandemic, that couldn't afford a $400 emergency. And a $1,000 emergency, forget about it. Forget about it. One surprise medical bill, and you are out. You're done for. You are kicked out of, what is considered to be middle class, and you are broke. Which, by the way, again, $30,000, $45,000 a year, that is not middle class. That is barely hanging on, is what it is. You're barely kind of getting ahead. And so, no, but the point of them bringing up these talking points is, well, they always do when people start to get a little bit of class consciousness. We've all been, talking about recently the worker strikes going on at, Kaiser, going on at Kellogg, at John Deere. Even the failed union organization attempt in Bessemer, Alabama. All of these different places, you have workers that are finally starting to assert their rights and saying, you know what? These companies, the company that I work for made billions of dollars in profits during the pandemic. They did extremely well, while we haven't seen a pay raise for years. Years. Well, we're fed up. We're tired of it. We deserve fair pay. We want to work. We want to do, the thing that we're supposed to do, but we deserve to get paid a fair wage. We deserve better than what we are being offered. And so whenever this class consciousness comes up, here you got the talking heads on Fox News coming out and saying, no, you're already super wealthy. You should be grateful for living in America where everything is fantastic. Yeah, everything's fantastic for you. Everything's great for you and all the people that you're, in your social class, the people that you talk to. You ever talk to a poor person? You ever talk to a real poor person, somebody who's working class? Never. And And that's why you think everything is fantastic. People are noticing that the rich are getting richer and they're not. And so here comes Fox News. And they've done this before. I remember Stuart Varney saying, yeah, you know, poor people, you're not poor if you have a refrigerator. If you have a microwave, you're not poor. Do you know poor people have a flat screen TV? Well, they're not poor. They're not poor. Everything's great. We shouldn't change anything. We should change nothing. Because everything is fantastic the way that it is. It is all the same, part of the same bullshit narrative to stop people from fighting for the things that they deserve. Okay. Go to Kyle Rittenhouse. The criminal trial of Kyle Rittenhouse, the then 17-year-old who crossed state lines with an illegal firearm and killed 2 protesters in Kenosha, is gearing up. Now, this newest development in the court rules is actually quite enraging. So now, prosecutors, according to the judge, will not be able to refer the people to the people that Kyle Rittenhouse shot and killed and injured as victims. Now, this is a ruling from Judge Bruce Schrader, and it came down, and he had said that the word victim cannot be used because it's loaded. It's a loaded word. Oh, yeah, victim. We can't call them victims. Well, okay, all right. So now he asked prosecutors instead to use the term complaining witness, because that sounds better, right? I mean, substitute victim with, he's just complaining. He's a complaining witness. He's complaining. Well, everybody loves complainers, right? Here we go. Here we go. So now look, here's the thing. I want a fair trial. I'm pretty sure we all want a fair trial, okay? Yes, nobody wants justice to be, miscarried, right? We do, yes, if he's guilty, we want him to be found guilty. If he's innocent, that sucks. But we want the facts of the trial to bear out. If it was real self-defense, okay. But if it wasn't, well then, we would like the trial to be fair. That said, it's shaping up to not be fair. Okay? And so, when you have a judge that says, well, the victim, calling them a victim is a loaded term. So you can't use that. But what they can use to describe these people, and they're specifically referring to the defense in this case, Rittenhouse's defense, well, the defense will be allowed to refer to the 3 people Rittenhouse shot as, quote, arsonists, looters, or rioters. So that's it. That's what Schrader ruled. I mean, he's saying, well, as long as they took part in those activities, of course. So calling these people who were shot, and 2 of them who are dead and can't defend themselves, calling them, rioters, looters, and arsonists, totally fine. But victims, no. Can't use that. Loaded term. Loaded term. Aren't those loaded as well? Now, Schrader said this. He said, let the evidence show what the evidence shows. And if the evidence shows that any or more than one of these people were engaged in arson, rioting, or looting, then I'm not going to tell the defense that they can't call them that, but the prosecution cannot call them victims. I don't know about you, but that seems a little one-sided here. Like, oh, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and call them rioters. Yeah. Now, here's the thing about Rittenhouse, right? So, look, as I've talked about before, I think the main thing here is Rittenhouse didn't need to be there. He knowingly went across state lines with a weapon he was not illegally allowed to possess in that state as a minor. He just wasn't. Those are the facts that we know. So now, look, maybe the defense has a video where Rittenhouse was, threatened before, shooting people with a gun. Okay. And so that would like, oh, he got scared because somebody had threatened him and had a weapon. And so, that's when he fired the shot and acted in self-defense, right? And then afterwards is when he got chased and then, went after him, whatever, right? We don't know right now. We don't have the evidence, okay? We're going to have to see the evidence, what they have. But now, not being able to refer to the people who are dead as a result of Rittenhouse choosing to be there in the first place as victims, again, makes me think that this is not going to be a fair trial. That regardless of what evidence exists, this guy's going to walk. And there is evidence that Rittenhouse went there specifically because of his desire to have a confrontation with black people. So, in fact, during a previous hearing, Assistant Director Attorney General Thomas Binger asked to argue at trial that Rittenhouse subscribes to the Proud Boys' white supremacist philosophies and violent tactics. So Binger pointed out that Rittenhouse was seen at a bar with members of the white nationalist group's Wisconsin chapter in January and traveled to Miami days later to meet that group's national president. Binger also asked the judge to allow evidence that Rittenhouse had attacked a woman in June 2020 as she was fighting his sister, kind of show that he has violent proclivities, and also wants to show jurors a video from 15 days before the shootings in which Rittenhouse said that he would like to shoot some men he thought were shoplifting from a pharmacy. So let me just stop there and point out how shoplifting is not a capital crime. Nobody should get the death penalty for shoplifting. Now, understand that not even in the Muslim countries that they denounce, right, do they murder people? Do they execute people for shoplifting? Think about it this way. What the right-wingers and Kyle Rittenhouse wanted to do to people who were caught stealing, looting, right? And we all agree that looting is a crime and that you shouldn't do it. But they believe the proper punishment for that, if you're a black person, is to shoot them dead, is to murder them. Whereas in Muslim countries, remember, they hate Muslims, right? In Muslim countries, Saudi Arabia, if you get caught stealing, you get your hand cut off. And here, the American right wing is even more extreme than the Taliban when it comes to looting. Is that not disgusting? I mean, and that's it. That's it. So now, that said, Binger said that Rittenhouse's affiliation with the Proud Boys, the fight and the video show Rittenhouse's propensity towards violence and described Rittenhouse as a chaos tourist and a teenage vigilante who came to Kenosha looking for trouble. And that's certainly, of course, what I get from him. But the judge says, no, we're not going to allow any of that. Nope. That evidence, but it's not relevant. It's not relevant to the case. The fact that he has violent proclivities and is white supremacist or has white supremacist leanings, not at all relevant in a case involving him going to a Black Lives Matter rally to cause trouble. Yeah, okay, sure. Now, there is another piece of evidence, though, that might be allowed, and this would be interesting. Prosecutors do plan to show infrared surveillance footage of Rittenhouse first chasing Joseph Rosenbaum, who was the first victim of Kyle Rittenhouse. See, I can actually say he's a victim, but apparently you cannot if you're on the prosecution. So now, if that's true, if that's allowed, if there's video evidence of him actually, before any of the shooting began, chasing after people, antagonizing the crowd, well, that changes the whole game. It changes this from a possible self-defense case to a case where, you have Kyle Rittenhouse, who was an active shooter. In which, of course, the other people, the so-called mob that is going after them and trying to disarm him, was really them trying to take down an active shooter. and completely obliterate his defense. I don't know if that video is going to be allowed. You would think that it would be incredibly relevant. Now, the defense is also allowed to use, though, a video showing police encountering Rittenhouse roughly 15 minutes before the shootings, tossing him a bottle of water and saying, quote, "We appreciate you. We appreciate you guys." So now, of course, what does that give? What impression does that give? Well, that he was allowed to be there, even though he illegally penetrated a police line and wasn't actually supposed to be there, especially since he had went over state lines with a weapon that he was not legally allowed to possess. But we appreciate you. And so it's saying, hey, it's okay. It's okay. He's good and he's welcome. He was there in order to help us police. He's the good guy. And the people that unfairly attacked him, well, they're the bad guys. The real villains in this story are the looters and rioters who just happen to be dead so they can't defend themselves. Convenient, isn't it? Very, very convenient, isn't it? Now, I don't know this judge. I don't. But it already feels like this judge is definitely on the side of Rittenhouse, giving him all these nice little breaks, try to make him look better for the jury. And again, I want a fair trial. I want to see all the evidence. And I disagree that his links to white supremacist groups isn't irrelevant. No, this was a Black Lives Matter protest. I believe he was there to play vigilante. And even if he wasn't there to explicitly shoot someone, he was certainly ready for the possibility. Maybe even eager for it. I don't know. I can't say for certain. Maybe he was just there to impress his white supremacist friends. Scare food black people. That'll get him some points online. Prove how much of a badass he is. Now, ironically, he got his wish. Now the right wing absolutely loves him because he did end up shooting 2 people. 3 people, actually. He'd been killing 2. And now, just like George Zimmerman, he is a right-wing hero. They love him. They're giving him money and they're helping his defense. And they will, sit there and defend him no matter what happens. So for him, it's all W's. And so seeing the judge treat this case and allowing Rittenhouse to get all of these special breaks, it gives you, it basically tells people, it sends the message that this is okay. It encourages this behavior. Go ahead and be a vigilante. Go ahead and go. It doesn't matter if you went over state lines. Who cares? Who cares? You shot the rioters and looters, so it's okay. Absolute disgusting. It's just gross. It's just gross. And I have this fear that Rittenhouse is going to walk as a result of all of this. I hope I'm wrong. Okay. I think I'm going to skip the billionaire versus millionaire story and go to the Democratic firm helping Republicans. Let's move on. A recent expose in Mother Jones has revealed that one of the most important data outfits on the Democratic side is also working to help get Republicans elected, even ones that supported the Capitol insurrection on January 6th. So now, you might not have heard, and I don't think a lot of people have heard of this, actually. This is a company called Target Smart. So basically, what it does is provides data to the DNC, state Democratic parties, and different liberal outlets or outfits, and is part of a parent company that gives data and support to the extreme far right. So on its website, Target Smart boasts that it is always focused on the Democratic Party, Democratic candidates and progressive organizations. We do not work with Republican candidates. Now, that is true of TargetSmart. However, according to the Mother Jones investigations, the owners and founders also own a company that earns millions of dollars helping Republicans, including far-right GOP state legislators who have tried to overturn the 2020 election results, who were involved in the January 6th march in the U.S. Capitol that turned into a riot, and who have been part of the Republican crusade to skew election laws against the Democrats. Oops. Well then. So let's get into the details. So what is this company? Who are they? And what do they actually do? What does this mean? So now the company, as I said, TargetSmart, works with both the DNC and Democratic state parties to develop things like data files for voter contact programs. So you ever wonder, like, for example, how these different Democratic organizations like get your emails? TargetSmart is part of this. Okay, so now the state parties, and this is how it works, they collect public voter registration data from local governments, and they share that with the DNC. The DNC pays TargetSmart to clean and augment that information, for example, adding a missing email address or a phone number to an individual voter file. That's how they can text you. And then, of course, you could just sign up for it as well. That's the most direct way. But if you haven't done that, but if you did vote, so you registered to vote, you know, in the last election, for example, the first time you got excited by like Bernie Sanders in 2016, but you hadn't actually signed up to any emails or anything like that, but you went and registered to vote and you voted for Bernie Sanders in 2016 during the primary, and then maybe voted for Hillary Clinton or whatever. It doesn't actually matter what you did. Your information is there. And so this company goes and picks out that information from publicly available lists and then starts filling in details in order to contact you. And that is how they were able to contact you. So now the DNC then provides the improved data to Democratic presidential campaigns and party committees trying to elect Democratic members of Congress. Now, it is noted that neither the state parties nor the DNC share proprietary data such as voters' candidate preference with TargetSmart. So, you know, just your contact information, okay? Now, they boast that their database contains information on 249 million voters and potential voters. That's almost every adult in the country. So with all that data, they say that they can help candidates and independent groups build lists for voter contact efforts and operate digital advertising campaigns. Now, they also do other things: polling, communication, modeling, strategic counseling, and as I mentioned, data enhancement services. And so they do a lot, and they actually get paid incredibly well for it. Now, during the 2020 campaign, for example, TargetSmart billed the Democratic National Committee more than $3 million for services. It also worked for Andrew Yang's presidential campaign, Stacey Abrams' Fair Fight PAC, Tom Steyer's Next Gen Climate Action, and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, the UAW Emily's List, Priorities USA Action, as well as other Democratic Party outfits. So these are mostly establishment Democrats. So, all right. Yes, this group mainly works with the establishment. Now, again, Mother Jones, this was written by David Korn, so he's more like, oh no, we've got progressive outlets as well, like Emily's List. Emily's List, again, super establishment. I'm not seeing anything like, you know, any groups that work for progressives in progressive organizations, but nonetheless, he likes to use that word interchangeably throughout this article. And I just felt like it was important to mention, because we're not exactly fans of the Democratic establishment here. At least I'm not. Now, TargetSmart also has a lucrative deal with state parties that allows it to sell voter files. It is cleaned and enhanced through a separate process to third parties ideologically aligned with the Democrats. say, a union or environmental group, and the state parties receive a cut of these fees. So now I said third parties. I don't actually mean a third political party. It just means, like I said, environmental groups, union groups, et cetera, et cetera. So one former Democratic official describes the relationship as this, quote, incestuous. It's an incestuous relationship between the state parties and Target Smart. So now Target Smart is not an organization like that's independent. It's a for-profit corporation. So it's not like doing this because they want more people involved and they want to help the Democratic Party. They want to get paid. And that's what this is about. Okay? So now, what we know about corporations is fairly obvious. They're about the monies. They're always about the monies. So now, Target Smart is a company that is owned by a holding company called the Terror Group. The Terror Group also owns 3 firms. These firms are American Strategies, Real Strategies, and Access Marketing Services. These 3 companies and Target Smart share administrative, financial, and human resources provided by the Terror Group. So now the other company that I want to talk about is, of course, the Access Marketing Services. Turns out Access Marketing Services is the one that are helping Republicans. So now Target Smart spokesperson is quoted in the article as saying, Target Smart is separate and run independently from the other companies controlled by its owners. Target Smart's service agreement with clients is very clear. We do not allow our data to be used by any organization that is affiliated with the Republican Party. Now, again, I give you that quote because the research shows that no, that's not true at all. That's not entirely accurate. So Access Marketing Services actually has been hired for 1,028 campaigns, and that includes campaigns that elect Republicans. Campaign finance records in several states show that Access Marketing Services has actually developed a remunerative relationship with the political branches of the National Association of Realtors and its state affiliates. And so now go back to that quote here, right? We do not allow our data to be used by any organization that is affiliated with the Republican Party. Well, now the National Association of Realtors is affiliated with the Republican Party. They massively support the Republican Party. So now they support the Republican Party by helping to elect Republican state officials, including controversial GOP candidates like Brian Kemp. Now the NRA fund also, NAR fund also paid Access Marketing more than $400,000 to assist 11 candidates for Senate and House seats in Georgia. All of them, unsurprisingly, were Republicans. Now, since 2017, the firm has also earned more than $500,000 from the National Association of Realtors Fund and its Arizona affiliate for assisting 14 state legislature candidates. All but 2 were Republicans. Several of the Arizona Republicans, aided by Access Marketing Services, championed the big lie that the election was stolen due to mass voter fraud. One of them being failed candidate Anthony Kern. So now Anthony Kern tried to run again in 2020. He lost, but he had attended the January 6th riot at the Capitol and was even a ballot inspector during the Cyber Ninjas audit. Wow. So that was, of course, until he was removed. Another is Representative Mark Fincham, a literal QAnon conspiracy theorist. Yes, he buys into QAnon and also, of course, champions the big lie. Another, in Texas, other Republicans paid Access Marketing Services over $670,000 to work on 12 Republican state legislative campaigns. 11 Republican legislative campaigns. They did have 1 Democrat in there. Oh, wow. Congratulations. We're very, very fair here. We're helping. See, we're helping some Democrats too. So now, 11 of those candidates, as I said, were Republicans. 8 of them went on to co-sponsor HB 6, which is a voter suppression bill in Texas, and also voted for the abortion ban in Texas. What happened to being a great partner to the Democrats? Yes, I know. Well, what are you talking about? These companies are under the umbrella corporation, and so not the literal umbrella corporation. They're not making zombies over there, okay? But they are helping zombies. They're helping the Trump zombies, and so they're doing that while Target Smart is helping Democrats, and the parent company rakes in the profits, and that's the issue. So now one of the owners says, "Well, hold on. None of the terror group companies do any direct work for Republican candidates or organizations. For its endeavors in Georgia, Arizona, Texas, and other states to promote Republican candidates, Access Marketing Services was paid by the Realtors, not the GOP contenders or any Republican Party group." So understand how much of a wishy-washy answer that is, right? Well, I mean, we didn't get paid directly by Republicans, but there was a Republican group that helps primarily Republicans, the National Association of Realtors, that loves them some Republicans, especially them January 6th Capitol insurrectionists and QAnoners. We love those guys. So, you know, if the National Association of Realtors pays us, well, then it technically, even though it went to Republicans, it didn't come from Republicans directly to us. Super, super wishy-washy, okay? I think it's fairly obvious if you even look at any of the data where that money goes from the National Association of Realtors. You would know that your money is, you know, that your services are directly going to assist these Republican candidates. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. So now, the party response, that is kind of interesting. So, you know, Mother Jones asked a couple of Democrats here, Democratic strategists and things like that, and even one former technology specialist for the Democratic Party. Now, he says, quote, or they say, "This is not a good look for Target Smart." Another union official said this is pretty damning. "In the world Target Smart occupies, it couldn't be much worse." One strategist for the Democratic Party says this: "Because Target Smart has so much control over the crown jewels of the party, its data, to have a sister company that pals around with insurrectionists is alarming." I would agree. But the DNC had a different take on this. All they said was, in response to the story, quote, "We buy data from Target Smart as we do from numerous other organizations." And then what? What else? No, that was it. That was the statement. "We buy data from everybody." Oh, okay. He then declined to discuss the matter further. Gee, I wonder why. Maybe it's because the DNC doesn't actually care. Honestly, I don't think they give a crap whether or not they buy data from a company and fund a company that also gives data to Republicans, the people that they're supposed to be running against. I don't think they care at all if Republicans win. Because on economic issues, Democrats unfortunately share a lot of overlap with Republicans. All very pro-corporate, lower taxes for the rich, less regulations on businesses, and of course, keeping money in politics, more and more money in politics. And so for this company, and even for some members of the DNC who are incredibly pro-corporate, this is fine. This is fine. They don't care. Whatever. Now, a lot of progressive organizations do care. And so it is incredibly troubling that you have this company that, you know, that the Democratic Party is doing business with, that literally is trying to not only undermine the Democratic Party, but to literally undermine democracy. Big, big problem. Big problem. And again, this is the problem with for-profit corporations. Honestly, they're going to go where the money is. It's all about the monies, right? And the money right now is in big data. And it's because of how important that data is in reaching voters. And so this parent company, they got caught with their hand in both pies while lying about how important electing Democrats is. Again, one of the founders here literally worked for Democratic campaigns and ran as a Democrat. And so, I mean, you would think that if you actually cared about winning, about your side winning ideologically, and not just that, but protecting democracy against what the Republican Party has become, you would not have another company in your organization that shares all the resources as they do between the three of them, assisting people who literally wanted to tear down the election based on bullshit lies. Disgusting. It's always, always about the money, and more importantly, who makes it. I hope that, I hope they do something, but knowing the abysmal state of the Democratic Party and how just feckless and weak and sad they are, and how they don't seem to actually want to win. They don't seem to want to win. They don't want to seem to fight at all for the things that they say that they care about. I don't see anything like this actually changing, which is incredibly unfortunate. Okay. Yeah, that's the show today. A bit of a downer. That's a bummer. But let me read some super chats and thank some Twitch viewers as well. Tabsab, thank you for resubbing with Prime. Appreciate that. 6 months. Oh yeah, half a year. Joey Peltier, thank you for following us. Tempedan 918, thank you for gifting a tier 1 sub. Appreciate that. And of course, all that goes to help the channel. Also, if you have a Prime sub, you want to help the channel out, doesn't cost you anything extra, and it goes to help me, which is great. So do that. Sign up if you have Amazon Prime. Can you imagine the voice Nina would have brought to Congress? Yes, it would have been awesome. Let's get her into Congress. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see. Let's get into the super chats. Here we go. Dango Bango says, charity is a wealthy scam to get out of actually doing anything productive and changing the exploitative system they benefited from mainly. But yeah, true, absolutely. Let me just add, too, that a lot of charitable giving, is it's tax deductible. So you do charity, and not only do you get the great PR, like, oh, so such and such donated $1 million, there's also substantial tax write-off. So you further cripple the system that actually gives aid people through government and through government programs, by the way, are far more effective at addressing poverty than things like charity are. And I'm not saying charity is terrible in all instances. No, charity is good. The problem with charity is that it doesn't reach enough people. It could never be widespread and good enough and comprehensive enough to cover everyone that is in need. And plus, there are also issues with charities being abused, of course, by the people who run them, taking in profits or large profit margins and things like that from the money, skimming from the top, etc. All legal, by the way. All legal. Let's see. It wasn't SDF. Bosch versus Destiny debate prove it. I haven't seen that debate, or many of the others, because I'm sure they've debated more than once, for sure. Dr. Zippy Mitscoot says Rittenhouse was a minor when he was doing all these things. What the hell were his parents? Were they aware of what he was doing or involved in it? Did they condone his activities? I'm not 100% sure, but I'm assuming that his parents were, at least they approved. I don't know for sure, though, so I can't exactly. DNC, we don't care about democracy. True. And Mahdi Darno says, counter-revolution pulled coup in Sudan, arrested civilian government, protesters killed. last vestige of the Arab Spring to the global struggle. Thank you, by the way. I haven't been paying too much, unfortunately, I haven't been paying too much attention to what's going on in Sudan, but it is important, so I'll look more into that as well. And I appreciate the update and the information on that. It's not that Sudan isn't important, it's just I haven't had a chance really to look into it. And I think, yes, it is important to. Hal was driven there by his mother. I think he must have noticed the gun. Well, I mean, if that's the case, then yeah, absolutely, had to have noticed. All right. His mom took it to the protest. All right, so there's a lot of confirmation here in the chat that that's what happened. All right, so that's all I've got for you today. All the time I have. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. I appreciate all the very, very kind super chats, as well as all the kind comments. And thank you again for watching. I really, really appreciate it. Like and share the stream if you haven't already. Sign up to become a patron. Patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. That way, of course, you can bypass. If you don't want to give money to Google or to Bezos, go to Patreon, and a bigger cut of that actually goes to help the show as well. So, thank you. Let's figure out who to raid into. It is Wednesday. Oh, it's apparently Francesca Fiorentini is live on the TYT channel, so I think we'll raid into that. I'm sure she's got a very interesting show going on. So let's do that. Everybody else on YouTube, if you want to do that as well. If not, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you all. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. You all have a great night.
There's some whores in this house.
I like my new type.
Beta male.
Big massive dumps.
I have not loved this conversation.
Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.